Good morning and welcome to Straight Talk Live. I'm your host, Edna Howe Parrish. Good morning once again. Well, the Kyle Rittenhouse case, Ahmaud Arbery, and now the school shooting case out of Oxford, Michigan, has us all wondering what the heck's going on with the law? What's the heck's going on with guns and shooting? Here to break it down and talk about the issues of guns, safety, I shoot you, you shoot me, or just taking a gun to school. Our guest this morning is Kenneth Lawson, the law professor. That's my name I give him. Co director of the Hawaii Innocence Project since 2019 and a faculty specialist at the William S. Richardson School of Law. He teaches courses on subjects including criminal procedure, criminal law, and professional responsibility. He is described as a civil rights academic. He and his family live in Hawaii, and he frequently provides legal analysts on the local media in Hawaii, as well as his hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio. Joining us this morning, live from Hawaii, is law professor Ken Lawson. Good morning and welcome, Ken.
Good morning, Edna. Um, have I
Great
been
to have
unmuted?
you.
You can hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. I can
All
see you
right.
with those Hawaii colors on the green, the orange, and the yellow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good
I heard
morning.
there was I heard there was a snow blizzard in Hawaii. Now I know there's a lot of the islands there, but is that true?
Yeah, it was on the Big Island, up on top of the mountains.
Okay. How unusual is that?
We get snow up there, but a blizzard, that's highly unusual.
Okay, okay. We're here this morning to talk about the issues of gun violence trials that have happened recently, and then the school shooting that took place in Oxford, Michigan. Ken, it makes me wonder about this issue of parents, the responsibility they have to their own children. Let's talk about the school shooting because these parents bought a gun for the child for Christmas. How unusual is that? Because I know parents back in the day used to buy kids BB guns, but now these guns are high powered automatic
Yeah.
weapons.
I think it depends on what culture you're coming from. I think, we talked a little bit before we came on the air, how this country has, especially after Trump, been so divided. And maybe we're just now learning things about one another that we didn't know before. But it doesn't seem to be unusual in certain segments of our society. You have certain right wing groups and NRA that love raising their children with these types of guns. But what I find ironic, Edna, is this: everybody was talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. And remember, his mother allowed him to have a gun. He was a teenager when he killed those people, right? But
Absolutely.
and so now you're getting now when we look at this shooting here at the high school, the one that you just mentioned, um, people are upset because the parents bought their child. But you notice how the climate was, at least from a lot of the country, when Kyle Rittenhouse was on trial. It was like they had no problem with this teenager having a gun as long as he was shooting people that they considered hoodlums, thugs, and rioters. Um, I find that ironic because both of these individuals that killed people were teenagers. Both had high-powered guns, but one is being viewed as a hero, right? And the other is being viewed as he should be being viewed as a murderer. And I find that ironic because again, we don't allow in most states teenagers to buy alcohol until they're 21. We don't allow them to make important decisions in their life until they're 18. And if you go into the military and you get trained with a weapon, it's a long time before they give you live ammunition. And so I just find it highly ironic when you compare these two cases, two white teenagers, but they're being treated differently by the same society that's looking at these cases.
Good point. Good point. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Straight Talk Live with Edna Parrish. Our guest this morning is attorney Ken Lawson from Hawaii. We're talking this morning about the issue of guns and gun violence and what's allowed and who's a hero and who shouldn't be called a hero. Good morning and welcome to Jerome Anderson from Cincinnati. Anthony Prosser is here. Good Sunday morning. Kale Amana, I'm sorry, Kaylee Amina. Good morning to you. Kevin Lonnet, he says, this is going to be good. Great Sunday morning. Yes, you're right about that. Rise and shine, straight talk community, and welcome back, Ken. According to Charity Monique Green from Atlanta, Anthony Prosser, he likes the show, so be sure to like and share, as he says. Queen Maxine, great grand rising to all of you. Hello, from Jerome Anderson, Crystal Williams, good morning. And all of you, welcome. And for those of you that are just joining us, Ken Lawson is here. Ken, that's a good point because in this case with the school shooting, a judge combined a $1 million bond Saturday for the parents of the Michigan school shooter. Those parents are in jail now. They're being charged with involuntary manslaughter counts. So, like you said, with the Kyle Rittenhouse case, he was 17 when he had that gun.
And not only that, but and his mother knew that he was going into that area,
Yes.
knowing that all that stuff has been contentious. And for again, we can get onto that case with respect to self-defense whenever you want to. But when you look at everything that his mother knew and encouraged, right? And then he
Yes.
goes out and kills people. Now all of a sudden, the same, you got a large segment of the right wing community saying, yeah, he's justified. This was self-defense, all this other stuff. And then you have the same people talking about this other case, with the parents being charged with involuntary manslaughter, as if they're two different types of cases, and they're not. You got
All right.
teenagers walking around with high-powered rifles killing people, and they had no business doing it.
Good point. And your questions can come in this morning. You can either give us a call at 513-873-7134, 513-873-7134, or you can just check in on Facebook with us this morning and send in your questions and your comments to Ken Lawson. Okay, so I want to stick with the school shooting case because now you got the parents and the kid in the same jail. So mother and father in jail, the kids in jail. Now the school teachers noticed some things. They noticed some writing, some drawings, some comments that he had made. The mom even commented on social media that she had took him out to have a practice with his gun that dad had bought him for Christmas. And the counseling with the parents that morning, they suggested that the parent get him counseling and also to take him home. But the school didn't follow through. We were talking about that, kid. You believe something else could have happened.
Well, yeah, the school could have just said, you know what, he's out because he's a danger. Uh,
Yes,
and I think that's going to be part of parents' defense. When you talk about involuntary manslaughter, what are you talking about? What you're saying is that the parents recklessly, not intentionally, but recklessly caused the death of the victims by allowing their son to have this gun when they knew that he was, dangerous, right? And so that's a lot to prove because the parents are going to have to say, well, the school, they were aware of it too, and they didn't call the police. Why aren't you charging them? Or if the police were called, they didn't charge our son with, because again, you know how you get some, it's against the law to threaten physical violence against people, right? And so if there's not enough to bring a charge on that, I think the parents are going to use what the school did not do as part of their defense. Like, y'all charging us because y'all want to use as a scapegoat. This, this is going to be their defense. You guys want to scapegoat us because y'all mad at our son. Um, but again, y'all didn't do anything either. And so to say that you allowed him to come back to school, you didn't call the police and have him arrested, you didn't do all these things, and you were aware of the same things that we were. Now the school may say, well, we didn't know he had a gun and that you gave him access to a gun, right? And that may be the difference there. But I still think it's going to be a tough case for them to prove. But I do think in this climate you can prove it. But again, that same defense Kyle Rittenhouse mother should have been charged with the same thing.
absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Crystal Williams, she said, is it possible the school can be charged because the whole shooting could have been prevented? Now, she makes a great point in that. Now, in the situation where the parents were called to the school, there was a conference about him having written these notes, violent notes, in fact. Even the mom calling the son after he got caught with looking for bullets on his phone, I guess. She said, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn to not get caught. That's what mom said. Quote.
Yeah, yeah. I think again, the school. Going back to her question, I think the school, if they're not charged criminally, obviously they're going to be charged. The victim's family is going to sue them civilly, and have them held accountable that way. And going back to the parents, I just think that buying him that type of gun, and knowing that the school is talking about, he's making these violent threats, allowing him still to have access to the gun, and then going to the point you just made, Edna, and also the fact that um, they ran, after the charges were filed, they went on the run. I think
Yeah.
all that's going to be used against them to show, because all the prosecution going to show is that you were reckless. Reckless meaning what? That you knew there was a substantial likelihood that your son could cause damage. You didn't do anything.
Our guest this morning, attorney Ken Lawson. Cleopatra Jones says, Grand Risings, everyone. Antonio Wright, he said, Ken Lawson is one that I always looked up to, and Mr. Leslie Gaines really got to see two great brothers perform at the highest level of the law. So good comment.
Well,
We know that.
thank you.
We know that. Yeah. Um, it's interesting also about the case with the parents and the counseling and what they didn't do. This kid goes to, now they have him on camera. He goes to the bathroom and comes out, pulls a gun out of his backpack, and then starts shooting. The school did a phenomenal job in catching him. They had some police on grounds there, so they did that. But 4 people got killed and others injured, and that was a shame. That was a
Yeah,
shame.
yeah, and going back to the earlier caller's question, and to yours, I think that's going. When you have the police on the grounds and you have somebody making these violent threats before they carry out, and like I said, the guy, he wasn't arrested or anything like that, and the police didn't seem to be too heavily involved prior to the shooting. I think all that's going to show is that even though you have police on the grounds, they still didn't do anything to protect the students that got killed.
Indeed, indeed. Christine Boykin says she doesn't see the school being held liable. The entire reason why the parents are in trouble is because the school notified the parents and they didn't follow through.
Well, the only thing though is, if you thought that if you're the school, if I'm the victim's attorney, their family's attorney, and I'm going after the school, my point is going to be, you lectured the parents, but you allowed the young man to come back to school, and you knew that he was dangerous, you being the school, and you had different means of suspending him, because those threats are serious threats that he made, and they should be up for automatic suspension. But instead of suspending him, instead of keeping him off the property, you all allowed him to come back in, and that's where the school could be considered reckless.
Hmm.
Now, I don't think they're going to be criminally liable, right? I
Okay.
don't. I don't think the school could be charged, but I think the parents can still use that as a defense in saying, they saw my son, they sat there and talked to our son with us, and they came to the same conclusion that we as the parents came to. That he was not a danger to return. He told him he learned his lesson, etc. Everybody was in agreement that it was okay for him to come back to school. That's going to be the parents' argument.
Interesting thought about that. I've worked in schools. Many people out there listening have worked in schools, and I know situations that have been kind of shaky there. I know they have walked kids out. You security guard with the parent, you
Oh
gone, you
yeah,
out of here. But if you're
yeah,
gonna do something, you're gonna have to leave and come back.
yeah, yeah. I mean, right then and there, you get one, have somebody come get you.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Uh, Anthony says, my question is, if this goes down, how hard will they be punished? And when it happens with our kids, how hard will they be punished? She says.
yeah. See,
Interesting thought.
yeah, I don't know. It's going to depend. Like manslaughter statutes normally they don't carry like a life sentence. Not like a murder statute or a premeditated murder statute does, where you can get life if you intentionally cause the death of another person. Manslaughter is like, if you go out and you've been drinking and driving and you recklessly, kill somebody. It's not intentional, but it's reckless. Or you're at a party and you have a gun that you think is unloaded, and you start pulling it. Yeah, like what happened on the movie set with Alec Baldwin, right? That's reckless, right?
Yes.
And so that's like involuntary, and so you're not going to get a life sentence for that, even though you kill somebody, because you don't have the intent to intentionally take the life. But normally, you get at least 10 years or a few years more than 10 for manslaughter.
Mm. I'm not bringing this into our case, but I'm gonna make a comment about Alex Baldwin. He said he didn't pull the trigger. I'm confused.
Yeah, yeah. Again, and so what? Real quick on that. So
Yeah.
a lot of times that not there's sometimes when people will say that, like, I had the gun in my hand, but I didn't pull the trigger. And then what the state's going to do if they charge Alex Baldwin is bring a gun expert to say, that in order for this trigger to be pulled, you had to put like 5 pounds of pressure on. They're going to bring in gun experts to talk about how much pressure had to be put on that trigger in order for that bullet to go out. And they're going to try to demonstrate it just couldn't have just went off.
Woody Brown says a black child would be removed from school. Now let's go back to class. A black child, he's bringing race into it. Could race be part of that?
Oh yeah, because I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if this made national news or not, but last month ACLU here filed a suit against the Honolulu Police Department because they handcuffed an 11-year-old black girl for drawing a picture that they thought was violent. So right, I mean, just a picture, and they went to the school and handcuffed this girl and wouldn't let her mother see the girl. And so the ACLU filed a lawsuit about that. And going back to his point, yeah, it'd be different. I mean, that's the whole point about this. Had a black shooter went to the Capitol at January 6th and got beat up, or somebody, some of these white individuals tried to attack them that were attacking our Capitol, and the black shooter would have done what Kyle Rittenhouse did, there's absolutely no way that he would be walking around free right now and be considered a national hero by some. And I think
Indeed.
that goes to the point about that division in our community or in
Question
our
from
country.
I'm sorry, Ken. Kevin. Kevin says the person on the set said this finger wasn't on the trigger. Could the gun have malfunctioned in some manner? It is a mechanical device. Gladys says, "Good morning, everyone. Beautiful family." Anthony says he was asking about the way the white parents will be punished compared to black parents who kids get a gun from home.
Oh
That's
yeah, well yeah, and that's a good point. Because study after study after study has been done that shows that black folks and people of color also brown are punished a lot harsher for the same offense, and none of that's changed. And let me say this about the Kyle Rittenhouse case. One
yes,
thing that I was not happy about, but I was glad that people got to see a judge, right, who was just so for allowing this young man to get off. And I don't know, remember some of the rulings that the prosecution
yes.
uh, uh, couldn't talk about the dead people as victims. You can't refer to the guys Kyle Rittenhouse killed as victims, but Kyle Rittenhouse and his defense team can call them looters, rioters, and thugs, and that's going to be allowed. And if you look at some of the news reporting, Edna, from that, how the judge was yelling at the prosecutor and not ruling in the prosecutor's favor. The reason why I say that is because that stuff that somebody mentioned, Les Gaines, that stuff that we dealt with on a regular basis in Hamilton County, Ohio, and throughout the course in the Midwest. Judges just like that. And you don't see them on TV because a lot of the cases aren't televised. But when you walk in a courtroom and you're dealing with a judge and you have a jury and the judge is siding with the prosecution or whatever side it's on. In our case, it was always siding with the prosecution, trying to get the jury to convict our clients. When you get that to happen, because when the jury's sitting there watching the judge, that judge has a lot of power. And the juries think, that the judge really knows what he or she's doing. And so when they're scolding and yelling at counsel in a way where they're demeaning them, right? The jury's not going to give that lawyer any respect. And so, when you saw that people were upset with that judge, my thing was, you know what? That was the run of the mill back in the day. And there's probably still a lot of them still around on the bench that were just like that.
Mm. They're saying that the judge was controversial, but was he fair? And you saying that he wasn't fair.
No, it wasn't fair. I mean, if you look at, I think that he had the young man come up and select which alternates that they wanted to dismiss.
Yes,
He was
yes.
right, and so all that stuff, the way that the judge treats a defendant when he's friendly with them, and right, and you watch the way that they treat black defendants. All that stuff plays a huge role. There's a lot more that goes into a trial than just the law and just what happens in that courtroom. It's body language. When you have lawyers that don't want to sit, public defenders that don't want to sit next to their client because they're ashamed to be represented, all that stuff plays a role in these cases. But yeah, that judge was run-of-the-mill judge for back in the day with Hamilton County. I know we got a lot of sisters that's on the bench now, a lot of brothers on the bench, which I'm glad seeing that change in Hamilton County. But hey, back in the day, hey, that was run-of-the-mill every day, every day.
Mm, mm, mm. I mean, picking the alternates, letting him put his hand in there and pick them. Now, that's not unusual to see those alternates being selected, but letting the defendant
Yeah,
pick them.
yeah. And just the interaction with the defendant, you know what I mean? And then when the witness was on the stand for the defense, and he said, it's Veterans Day, and we want to salute these veterans, all that kind of stuff. Applaud him. I mean, so now you're lending more credibility to Rittenhouse's witness. And like I
Exactly.
said, they would try to single-handedly bring home a conviction. If they think that the lawyer is doing a good job for his client, and they may be found not guilty, and we can do another show on this, because I mean, and I can bring you factual cases that me and Les Gaines had where this stuff would happen all the time.
We'll schedule we'll schedule a date for that, kid, because I want to hear more about that. But
Oh
even
yeah,
even excluding the fact that Rittenhouse posed for pictures with the Proud Boys, the judge didn't want to let that in.
right.
Uh, just I mean, this with Veterans Day, he let the person in the court stand up if they were a veteran. He got big applause for that. I mean, it's just amazing, like you said, the things that the judge didn't allow to be
And, and
said in court.
here's the thing with self-defense, right? And all of us have the right to self-defense. But the main thing is that you can't do anything to start the fray. You can't do anything to bring it on. What I mean by that? And so, like, if I'm sitting there calling you names, or if I give you a little push or whatever, and then you pull out a gun, I'm like, oh my God, Edna's going to shoot me. So now I have to stab her. You know what I mean? I can't then claim it's self-defense because I did something to put all that in motion.
Mm,
You feel me? And so,
right.
and the problem was that when he was going up there, that he knew that he went there to confront individuals that he thought were rioters and looters, etc. He claimed
Mm,
he was going up there to protect the property of others who never called him that. So here you got a 17-year-old boy carrying an illegal gun. And remember, the judge threw that charge out too. So he's 17 years old, carrying an illegal gun, and he's claiming self-defense, but you went to the fight. And so I think that was something that people really wasn't paying attention to, because when you argue self-defense, you can't have anything to do with starting it and then killing somebody and saying,
mm,
okay, I acted in self-defense. You have to show, right? And so I think that all those things about the Proud Boys, the statements that he made on social media before he went there, and some of them were violent statements, the judge didn't let those in either. And what the
mm.
prosecution was trying to say is that goes to show why he went. He didn't go there to protect property. That's BS. He went there because he wants to get into a fight. He was looking for a fight. That's why he went there.
He came there
And
ready to fight, because would you carry a big gun like that out there on your shoulder if you weren't ready for a fight? If you weren't going to shoot somebody, that all could have
no,
been premeditated. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go to your. But that's the point, right? And so, in order to show that premeditation that you're going there for a fight, the prosecution wanted the judge to let them bring in his social media posts before he got there to show this is the reason why. And the judge wouldn't let that in either. That's what I'm saying, man. These judges. But yeah, and so to me, it was not a clear claim of self-defense whatsoever. And again, the prosecution didn't do a great job either. And you can
I
see the
was going to
difference.
ask that.
Yeah, I mean, the prosecutor was just, I don't know, just ill prepared. And you can see the difference between the way that prosecutor prosecuted that case and the prosecutor in the Ahmaud Arbery case prosecuted her case and
Oh,
got the
yes.
conviction of those three people, right? I mean, she was just on it. And she
Mm.
took away every defense they could have had with respect to self-defense.
So perhaps if they had had a better prosecution
Yeah,
of the case.
if they would have had a better prosecutor who knew how to deal with a judge like that, yeah, then they could have gotten a conviction, because again, but a lot of it had to do with the evidence that the judge was going to let in. And going to your point, how do I prove how he went there unless you let me show his premeditated state of mind by using
Mm,
this other evidence, right? And they
mm.
wouldn't let that in.
My question to you now, Kyle Rittenhouse apparently is going to destroy his gun. Is that something that he would normally have been able to keep the gun in the case, I guess, since he was found not guilty of murder, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, normally he would be able to keep the gun
Okay.
because one, the judge already ruled it was legal for him to have it. It was not right, so they threw that charge out. And then he was found not guilty. So he was it's legally his gun.
Mm, mm, mm. Let me see what the listeners have to say. Cleopatra says, that's what I said. Him put himself in that situation. I guess I don't know who him is, but somebody put themselves in that situation. Crystal said, good morning. Janice Robertson replying to Cleopatra. It depends on the circumstances. Janice says, the Rittenhouse judge was completely out of order. Gladys says, the worst judge I ever seen in my life. Kevin said the judge prejudiced the case, so whether he was or wasn't guilty, the outcome is tainted. Just wondering
Yeah.
about that.
No, like I said, I can't emphasize enough. Now when y'all saw him, think about that and multiply that by several different judges throughout the Midwest. And that's just the way it was, And you can
Wow.
see how much influence that they have on whether or not a person gets to go free or gets convicted, because they
Mm.
control what evidence comes in. They're the
Now,
gatekeeper. They're the gatekeeper. Whatever evidence that the jury is going to hear against the defendant, and if they don't let it in, the jury won't hear it.
now, as a professor, is this case of Kyle Rittenhouse, would that be a textbook case that you could teach on?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, we just finished our last week of classes, and I
Mm-hmm.
teach criminal law here, and so we use
Right.
that as an example when we were talking about self defense, because it reminds me of um, doggone it, what's his name? The New York subway Getz.
Oh, the Fruitville
Getz.
case. Yeah.
Bernard Getz. Remember that? And so my students don't remember that case. And I kept saying this Kyle
Really?
Rittenhouse case.
Uh,
I mean, my students are like, they were born in like 2000, like 2002. So,
okay.
and,
They still
and
babies.
yeah, so you're talking about something that happened and I think it was in the 70s. But anyway,
yes.
when you talk, and some of you, the viewers may know what I'm talking about, the Bernard Guest case where he shot those individuals on the subway.
Yes.
And remember, he shot the one kid who was just sitting there and paralyzed him, even though the kid wasn't doing anything. And he was treated as a hero the same way that Kyle Rittenhouse is treated by a large segment of his community as a hero,
Yeah.
as getting rid of these thugs and murderers. And so, yeah, it's a good case to teach on, um, to show how that law can be used um, and abused.
All right. Jerry Croucher says the Kyle Rittenhouse case reveals the breaking down of law and order. The cops should have told Rittenhouse to go home and let them do their job, but the cops were nowhere to be seen. And when they did see him with the gun, they didn't stop him because they did eventually see him. They didn't stop him, though. Janice Robertson says she believes that because it was a Black Lives Matter protest, the judge didn't even care if the victims were white. Kevin
Right.
says,
Right. Right. I
okay,
mean, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. If you're gonna be with them, we're gonna treat you like them. Your lives don't matter. That
okay.
that that was the message. If you're gonna be out there with them, good, you're gonna get treated the same way we would treat them if they got killed. Your life don't matter.
Mm. Cleopatra Jones says she was talking about Kyle Rittenhouse when she said him. I was a little confused on that one. And Kevin says he is destroying the gun because he regards what happened. He regrets what happened. He is not a racist, supports Black Lives Matter, and he wants to put this behind him. Okay, now I know that Kyle Rittenhouse did say he was not a racist. He did say he was supporting Black Lives Matter. Um, but he's also going on conservative talk radio stations talking his talk. And there's word that he could be maybe running for office or perhaps being working with, uh, in somebody's law firm or perhaps
Well,
working with somebody in Congress or in the House.
Well, with all due respect to the caller, that's not what his social media posts were saying before he killed those people. He was not, uh, unless there's some out there that I haven't seen, but he was not supportive of Black Lives Matter. In fact, he was angry about the way that the protest was happening. Now, maybe he, in order to look good or feel good, after he killed those people, he had a change of heart. I can't speak on that. What I can say is that circumstantial evidence dictates what was going on in your mind, because none of us can tell what's going on in each other's minds. I can tell by your actions, to a large degree, what you're thinking, and what your intent may be. And if you look at all his social media posts before and after, like Edna said, posing with the Proud Boys, how do you support Black Lives Matter and support the Proud Boys at the same time who oppose Black Lives Matter? But that was happening before he killed those people. So I respectfully disagree with that caller saying that.
Hmm. Yeah, but
Um,
I do know that I did read that Rittenhouse did say that he supports Black Lives Matter. He did say that he would be destroying the gun. He didn't say because he regretted what he was doing. So, I did see that part of it. Interesting thought there. How does someone who is not racist pose with the Proud Boys, says Christian Boykin. Aaliyah says, be sure he made his way to Florida to shake hands with Trump. He did get down there for that. What does that say politically?
and like I
What does
said,
that say? Mm,
yeah, he's trying to play both sides of the fence, and
yes.
see, and he may have destroyed his gun in order to look good, but that don't change his heart.
Mm, mm, mm. A jury. Let's talk about the case with Ahmaud Arbery. Now, people are cheering for this one. This is a good win for the defense. I mean, for the prosecution against the three that are charged with murder in his case and were convicted.
Yeah, but again, I don't want to. One, I think it was great that they were convicted, but I want, when you look at the George Floyd conviction and you look at Ahmaud Arbery's, both of them happened because there was videotape. And had that videotape been destroyed in either one, we would have had a different result or no result at all. Remember, in George Floyd's case, if you go back and look at the transcripts the first press release the police gave about him dying in custody was that he had a medical incident, um, and that's how he died. And then they found out there was a whole bunch of videotape from civilians, and they had to back up on that. You go to this case. Remember, the first prosecutor is now charged with trying to cover this up. The only way
Exactly.
the only way she got caught is because of the video, and so they never intended, they being the prosecution and the police never intended to even charge these guys with killing brother Aubrey at all. Now, yeah, we're glad that they got the conviction. What I don't want, what I caution myself on is, does this, people said after the George Floyd conviction, after Ahmaud Arbery, does this mean things are changing as far as justice? And I'm not convinced of that yet. I'm not convinced of that, um, because again, you had overwhelming evidence in both of these cases, um, that these were just plain out and out murders, right? And
Mm-hmm.
had the evidence been destroyed, which what they wanted to do in Aubrey's case, or ignored, this never would have came to the light of day. Had those civilians not videotaped the George Floyd, it would have been a medical emergency, death, and because a guy had a medical emergency while being arrested, no case whatsoever. And that's what and we can see that through the Kyle Rittenhouse case. You can see that through other cases as we progress along. And it's going to be interesting to watch the lady that's on trial now, the one who claims she accidentally pulled out she was going for a taser and shot the young man with the gun. I think she's going on trial right now.
Okay. I want to talk about a little bit more about the former DA in this case of Ahmaud Arbery, Jacqueline Johnson. How unusual is it that a prosecutor would have charges brought up against them? Because she did stand in the way and did not want Travis McMichael or Greg Michael and William Roddy Bryan. She didn't want the police. They didn't get arrested, and she stood in the way of that. How unusual that is a prosecutor being charged in a case
High,
like this.
one is highly unusual, but two, it happens a lot more than people think. When you look
Okay.
at a lot, when you look at, I know you had an exoneree on that was found actually innocent a few weeks ago. But when you look at a lot of the cases that we do in the Innocence Project, a lot of it involves prosecutors hiding evidence, right? And that's been a big thing that they're never disciplined. The last one that really got any discipline, well, not the last one, but one. Remember the Duke lacrosse case, um, and they had charged all these lacrosse players. The prosecutor did
Yes.
with rape,
Yes.
and then it found out that he was lying and had hidden evidence and stuff like that. And so he ended up being disbarred. But it happens a lot more than people think. And I think because there was so much international attention brought to Mr. Arbery's murder, that and all this evidence came out, that they had to go ahead and charge her. I would like to see it happen in more cases because this, I mean, no joke. Um, they would. It happens like in this case, it would have just been not charging 3 people with killing Mr. Arbery. In other cases where they do it, it's putting people in prison or on death row for crimes they didn't commit, and they don't
Mm.
give the evidence showing the actual innocence.
Okay.
They
Tell me
hide it.
this: why were all three charged with the same crime and only one person pulled the trigger?
Oh, you're acting in complicity, and so if I say to you, Edna, look at here, I want to go rob the National Bank, and I say, if you help me, right, um, I'll give you 5 G's. And so
Okay.
now, so we're not. So now you are aiding and abetting me in committing this crime. We don't have to have words. We don't have to talk about it. We can show that agreement. We can show that I'm going to help you, not by even talking, but by just doing. You see it a lot when people are standing around and 2 people get into a fight. You see these things on social media, right? Then you may
Right.
see other people jump in. Now those people that's jumping in, those are aiders and abettors. Why?
Okay.
Because they're helping one side or the other commit the crime of assault. And so now, if you see this guy chasing this black man down the street and they're out trying to kill him, and you jump in and you're trying to help, and you do help, right?
Right.
Um,
I
then
got
yeah.
you.
So now
Okay.
all of you guys are gonna take the crime as one because you are acting in concert together.
Mm. And one wanted to have his case thrown out. He was going to, give some more information, but they said no. You got to go along with your buddies because you was part of it too.
Well, and the thing is, his information would have been more important had they not had that videotape. But with that videotape and other evidence, it's like we don't need you to help us. So you sit on over there and take your medicine too. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Gladys said the video made all the difference. Brother Anthony says, I believe things are changing, not fast enough, but we do see more officers being prosecuted than we did before. And then
Oh,
Kristen said he supported Black Lives Matter because he was trying to change the narrative of being a racist. That plan backfired because now the right is upset with him. The right side is upset with him. So, and then Crystal says, will these Michigan parents be convicted? How much time will the McMichaels get for murdering Ahmaud Arbery? Will the cops in Columbus be convicted? So I'm gonna let you try to catch up, Ken. I know you were gonna say something before I stepped in.
no, no, no. Yeah, it's going to depend on Georgia statute as far as how much time these 3 guys get for killing Ahmaud Arbery. And so I don't know. More than likely, it's going to be a sentence that includes life, right? But it may
Mm,
not be like mandatory life,
right.
25 to life, 20 years to life, which means they'll be eligible for parole at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with respect to the parents, I think I think they probably I think the climate of the country will allow them to be convicted. It's going to be interesting to see their defense though, because I think you have to show that I knew that my recklessness um, that there's substantial likelihood it could cause somebody's death if I engage in it. And so I think I think the prosecutor may be able to show that because of the violent talk and writing and stuff like that the young man was doing um, when the school called them, and the fact that mom and dad gave him such a crazy gun, and then they tried to run instead of to me, if a parent is like, look, I didn't, I'm not criminally responsible. You don't run.
If you weren't trying to run, why would you go get 4,000 out of the bank and then get somebody to help you get to a Detroit to get to a warehouse to hide out, and
Right.
you knew you would have to go to the DA to to be arraigned, and you didn't do that. You didn't make no phone calls.
Yeah. Yeah. So and flight from prosecution can be used as evidence of guilt in your trial. And so if you run and like what OJ had done, right, or like what these people had
Yes.
done, when you try to when you so now the prosecutor can bring that into evidence to show only guilty people run. Um,
Mm.
and somebody asked about a case in Columbus. What case in Columbus?
Um. Were you? I don't know the person. I know there was a case with a teenage girl who was attempting to stab another girl, and the police shot her and killed her as she was ready to stab another girl. That was this summer. I don't
Yeah,
know if that's
I,
the case.
I, I don't think the police. I saw that video, and I don't think the officer should be. I mean, because at least the way I viewed it, I saw from the tape, it looked like she was going to stab another girl. I don't know what
Yeah.
else the officer's supposed to do. Um,
Mm.
the law allows you also to. It's not just a police that can do that, but if you see or if you truly honestly believe that someone close to you is in danger of being killed, you can shoot or kill in self-defense to protect another person. But you have
Right.
to be able to demonstrate that you did it in self-defense of that other person.
Mm.
And I think that's going to be his defense.
Now, Ohio has the Stand Your Ground law recently signed by the governor this past summer. Now, there was a man in Dayton who was convicted this past week in the shooting of two teens. They were smoking marijuana in his garage. He went out there, saw them smoking. He said he was standing his own ground, protecting his own property. He shot and killed the girls, but he was found guilty. They said that case didn't work like that for him.
Right. Stand your ground don't mean it's the wild wild west where you can just get in an argument with somebody and start shooting them. Stand
Right.
your ground, and really stand your ground didn't make a lot of sense to me because the law always has said that you don't have, if you believe that you're in danger of great bodily harm or death, then you can act in self-defense. You don't have to run. So that's always been there. um and so I think people are looking at this stand your ground like, okay, I come out my house, see these two guys smoking marijuana, they refuse to leave, and so because they're not presenting any other danger to me other than smoking marijuana, and I kill them. That's not stand your ground. You still have to be in fear of great bodily harm or death, and that has to be immediate. Then I think that if I don't kill these people, they right now will kill me. And so that threat that you feel that somebody may take your life has to be immediate. In other words, if I say to you, look here, and um, I don't like what you just said to me, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go and get a gun, and if you hear an hour from now, I'll be back in an hour, then I'm gonna kill you. And then you shoot me as I'm leaving to go get my gun.
And I'm going to
Right?
stay there and wait, right? Nah.
Right. But again, so the threat is not immediate, right?
Right.
The threat is it's like, okay, if you hear an hour from now, or if I see you tomorrow, I'm gonna kill you, right? And then you just shoot me in my head. It's like, okay, well, right. The threat that your life is gonna be taken has to be right now. And so
Okay.
when he walks out there in the garage and they're not threatening to kill him or anything like that, um, he's gonna lose.
Kevin says he replied to Janice Robertson's question. He says, "I think the real question is why was he crying? He is a kid, though, so I don't know. I guess he's talking about Kyle Rittenhouse crying on the stand with his fake crying. Lord help me,
Yeah.
but it was a fake cry.
Well,
Like,
so when you're doing these cases, what you want to do is because a lot of these cases come down to if the jury likes your client. So, that's
yes,
just trying to get sympathy. Everybody, I mean, we've all seen that. You scold your child and they start, fake crying to
oh
get you to
yeah,
feel
oh yeah.
sorry for them. You know what I mean? So it was just so obvious that that's exactly what he was doing. Um,
Mm. Marche says that the police killed Andre Hill in Columbus and the officer was charged. So I'm not so familiar with the Andre Hill case out of Columbus.
Neither am I.
Uh, so Crystal gave me the website, but I can't get to that until after we go off the air. Janice says, true that you cannot, she said, is it true that you cannot kill somebody to protect your property. Oh, that's the fake cry. Oh, that's the real tears. That's when he was probably found not guilty.
So,
The
going
first
to
that
Janice's point,
that was just
going
dry heaves. That was the first when he was fake and crying. So Janice says, "Is it true that you can't kill to protect your property?"
that's true. The only time the only time you can do that is if you believe, like if you hear somebody breaking into your house and you believe they're going to come in to cause you and your family harm. Yes, you can kill at that point. But just killing somebody, because what the law is saying is, look, we value human life, and if somebody is destroying your property, um, we rather see them destroy your property and you prosecute them than for you to take their life.
Mm.
And so, the answer is no. But if you believe that whoever's coming through your house or whatever is there with intent to cause you or your family members serious physical harm or death, then you can kill.
Back in the day, way back in the day, my dad said, "Well, if somebody come to my door and they look like they're gonna kill me," he said, "I'm gonna shoot them and then pull them over the doorstep. They in my house,
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
stand
yeah,
right to do that." But that's what he
yeah,
said. I wouldn't do it, but
yeah. And the reason what he's saying is, and when they're in your house, there's no duty to retreat. And
okay,
so, right, because your house is what they call, your castle, right? And so there's no duty to retreat. And you don't have to run in your own home. And that's why your dad was saying that.
yeah, yeah, I got it. Kathy says, replying to uh, Goodwin Williams, moving forward. I don't know what, I don't see everything on that one, so I can't get to that one. But let's go back to the Oxford school shooting because that's going to be so interesting to see this. It's just a shame a family ruined. Three people in jail, a mother, a father, and their kid, all because a parent bought a kid a gun, and then they said the gun wasn't locked up, but the kid actually had access to it. So if it was locked, he had access to the key. He knew
Well,
how to get to it.
yeah. Well, but again, that's going to be an interesting trial, though, Edna, because the question is going to be, did we give him access to the key? I mean, I remember I could get into certain parts of my mother and father, if they wanted to keep something from us. We could, us four kids, we could get to wherever it is that we need to get to, you know what I mean, without our
I
parents'
know.
knowledge. So I think it's going to be interesting if the parents say, look, we locked it up, because that's what they would have to show. They have to show, look, yeah, we gave our kids access to the gun. That's nothing unusual for where we live at, whatever. But we also made sure that he engaged in gun safety. We had the gun locked up. We had no idea that he had made a copy of our key or knew where we hid the key, etc. Just like we had no idea he was going to take the gun and go to school and shoot that morning. We met
Yeah.
with the school, right? So the defense, we met with
Hmm.
the school. We met with, right? So we don't see what else is how we were reckless.
Yeah. All my life, my dad had guns, and we knew where they were, but we knew better. We knew better than to to get into them or get into we just knew better, and we didn't do that. Um, Crystal says, "Do you still follow Cincinnati cases, Ken?" She's just curious.
No, every now and then, it just every now and then, not as much as I used to.
Okay. Kathy says video evidence has been key in these cases. She says, "Ken, do you think Republicans will create and pass legislation, laws to prohibit
Yeah,
use of
yeah.
video in such cases moving forward?"
What they're doing is like a lot of police unions are lobbying the local legislatures to make it a crime to videotape police officers engaged in their lawful functions. And so, that's a very, very good question, a very good point. And it makes no sense, because me standing around videotaping you and not interfering in the arrest, how does that interfere with you lawfully doing your job as a police officer? And so they try to pass one here. It didn't pass here in Hawaii. But I think that that's taken root throughout the country. Um, and I just hope, and I think the First Amendment hopefully will protect it. The argument is, from the police standpoint, well, we're so concerned about what they're videotaping that it takes our focus off the actual arrest, and that's BS. I mean, you're a professional, right?
Hmm.
I mean, and so whether civilians videotaping you or your body camera is on, you're being videotaped, and so it shouldn't interfere with your duties and being a police officer.
Right, right. Anthony says, right, Miss Edna, Dad kept guns and shotguns all loaded, and we knew not to touch them. Joyce said, that's right. She said, good information. She likes the show. Joyce said it should be done. That's why citizens do it. Keep those guns locked up. Glenn says, I heard the gun was in a regular drawer in the parents' bedroom without a lock, basically in the nightstand. Interesting point there. The Oxford High
Yeah.
School shooting guns are more important than the motive. What? The debate surrounding the recent Michigan shooting reveals the urgent need for a change in gun culture. Is that about to happen, Ken?
No, no. I
Change.
mean, the change in the gun culture. I mean, we've been doing this for 30 years, right? Where the NRA and the rest of them continue after all these shootings, they still push back on changing gun laws, and I don't. Again, I know the NRA is in a lot of trouble financially, so they don't have as much strength as they used to. Maybe we're on the beginning of seeing that breakdown. Remember when the tobacco companies kept
Yes.
winning trial after trial for decades about causing cancer, and finally they started losing, and so now cigarettes are what, $10 a pack. I think maybe we're getting to that point. I just don't know, because if killing kids doesn't get you to change your legislation, if killing kids isn't enough for you to say, you know what, we need better gun control law, I don't know what it's going to be.
Hmm. That's an interesting point there. I know that the situation in Oxford, Michigan is it's on the hearts and minds of a lot of people. But I even heard this morning that, of course, the copycat people are out there. They're saying they're getting more thoughts and comments about kids talking about going out shooting up schools and taking guns to school. I don't know.
Well, that's something we talked about before we came on the air, and it just hit me as you and I were talking. It's just like, as you just pointed out, right? Everybody, there were guns in our houses coming up, but I mean, up until like 1995 when Columbine happened, or
The
around that
freeze
time,
up. Go ahead.
yeah,
I'm sorry,
no
Ken.
one's
Repeat.
thinking about. Yeah, I was just no one's thinking about shooting up schools, and it just like after a while, it's like something that's happening now, even though guns were available to kids all through that time. So I just don't know.
Okay. Okay. We had a problem with the system. You were making a comment, Ken, and it didn't go over. Can you repeat that?
What I was saying is that you and I were talking before the break about these school shootings, and how when we were coming up, as you pointed out, your dad had guns in the house, my father did too, but we wasn't taking them to school shooting people up. And all of a sudden, like from like the mid '90s up until now, we're dealing with multiple school shootings. And going to your point a few seconds ago, now they're talking about other kids, wanting to do this, copycatting. I don't understand that, and it just, I don't know why this is happening.
Crystal says, question, how prevalent will the bullying excuse be going forward? This is second shooting at a school where the kids are saying they were bullied before they did it. Um, Replying to Kevin London says, I don't know. I don't know. You can't convict her. LOL and happy belated Founders Day. I'm not quite sure what that's about. Nikaya Lovett says, yeah, I grew up with the loaded gun as well, and never has it went through my mind to go shoot up a school. Kevin says it did go over, guys. Nathan Ivy. Okay, Nathan said it went over. I'm sorry that your voice went over. So I'm kind of
Okay.
confused on that one. But the situation is, again, with these school shootings and guns, and we just hate to hear that. It's just so sad.
I
Parents
wonder.
may not want to send their kids to school now. They're
I,
scared.
I I wonder how much social media and that type of stuff, bullying on social media, and knowing how much attention you can get by doing this plays a huge role into it. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but I would love to
Mm-hmm.
find out, because it's something that seems to it's almost like a common occurrence now, which is sad to say.
Mm. And then more teachers will become armed. And they're doing that now. Giving training for teachers to be armed in schools.
Yeah.
Uh, Another comment: police said the courts have control over body cam footage, but not citizens. Video footage being leaked presented to dispute what authorities may try to omit. That's from Kathy. How do you feel about charging juveniles as adults?
I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on it depends on the type of crime. Again, I don't like that, um, and it depends on the age of the juvenile. And so I
Okay, so
think some.
our 15-year-old shooter from Oxford, Michigan, should he be tried as an adult? Do you think that's fair
That's a good question, Edna. I would need to know a little bit more about him.
about him, right?
Yeah,
Mm,
um, and because I think again, the reason why I'm saying that is because we have to see. We want to punish people because they have formulated the intent in their mind that they're
mm-hmm,
going to commit the
mm-hmm,
crime and they understand the nature of it. When you're talking about teenagers and stuff like that, like I said, we don't even trust them to buy their own alcohol. We don't trust them with an automobile till they're 16 because of their decision making or their inability to make good decisions and understand some of those decisions they make what the consequences may be. So I know that sounds like a cop out, and maybe
no,
it is, but I just don't know.
no,
I have to learn more about him.
it doesn't seem like a cop out. Which could you do you think you could defend a child like that?
Yeah,
You could.
yeah, and I have.
Okay, okay,
Not a school shooter, but I defended a young man that stabbed his mother um, multiple times out of Dayton, Ohio,
okay.
um, and other juveniles. Remember the Crystal White case?
Crystal White. Hmm. I'm
Crystal
not quite.
White, Crystal White um, was out driving with her friends, and she killed a lady in a head-on collision that was pregnant with an unborn but viable fetus.
Oh yes,
Right? She was a juvenile.
yes,
She was a juvenile in an accident, and remember Joe Dieters wanted to bind, well, they bound her over and tried
yes.
as an adult. And remember, at the same time, there was a young man from Roger Bacon that did the same thing. He was 16 and was speeding and killed his friend in a car crash. They kept him in juvenile court. This is at the same time. I don't know if y'all remember this or not. Boy, that was a hell of a case to see the two distinct ways the two juveniles, one black and one white, was dealt with in our system. And the
Mm,
white one was kept in juvenile court and allowed to go to class. Crystal was charged with something that wasn't even a crime, the death of an unborn but viable fetus. That was not a crime in
right.
Cincinnati. Joe Dieters went to the grand jury and had the grand jury indict her for that, knowing. You talk about knowing it wasn't a crime,
Mm, mm, mm.
right?
And she
And
was
so,
charged
yeah,
with two murders.
she was trying, right. We got the
Hmm.
one dismissed because it wasn't a crime. And
Right.
then I think she ended up doing like 2 or 3 years. And that led to a change in Ohio law called the Daily Law, which means
Hmm.
that if you do kill somebody that's pregnant and they have an unborn but viable fetus, the fetus can be considered as a person also.
Mm. Marche
But
says, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Edna.
Marche says she went to school with the kid from Roger Bacon that was like in 97 or 98, she says.
Yeah.
Um, Crystal, she says, Elizabeth says Crystal was one of her students at Bloom Middle School. I often talked about her case with the school
Yeah.
students, she says. Um,
Eh,
Nakia said, let's not forget that Joe Dieters, she says, quote, unquote, is a whack. I didn't say that. She said it for me. Thank you. Replying to Glenn Williams, mine is Wyoming. I'm feeling the same. Uh, the kid knew he was going to kill students. Some students stayed home because they were also aware of what was going on with the premeditated murders. So apparently, this might have been put on social media
Yeah.
for them to say they didn't come to school that day.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's a good, if that's true, and I have no doubt, no reason to doubt that that's true because I haven't seen the report, but that's going to play a huge role in because some parents had to if that happens, some parents you're going to stay home and they still contacted the school, right? We're keeping
Yeah.
our
Oh,
kid
yeah.
out because we heard it, right? And so now it's going to be interesting to see what did the school do.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And then, and again, enough information was going on, pictures being drawn, talking about the blood. Even after the school shooting happened and word got out to the media, the parents heard it, and the mom called and texted the boy and said, "Don't do it," which he had already did it.
Oh my God.
So the mom knew
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
These, something's going on. So then Janice says Donald Trump has let the hate and I can't say and do anything I want Genie out of the bottle, and I don't think we'll ever get it back in. So she said Donald Trump let the I hate Genie get out of the bottle.
But yeah, and I agree with that, and I think he didn't to this extent too, that he made it. Every people believed what he was saying for a long time. They just were afraid to say it. When he comes out and did what he has done and continues to do, allows people the freedom to say what they always truly believe. And I think that's what was so hurtful about the last several years, is because a
Mm,
lot of us had thought, and wrongfully, that we had gotten further than what we've gotten. You know what I mean? When it comes to race relations, and talking to. I mean, I work closely with Senator Brian Schatz and Senator Hirono from Hawaii on legislation in Washington, and just to hear the division that's happening up there is just for no reason. Well, we see it all the time.
mm.
Um, I just think he made it popular for us to be a lot meaner to each other, um, or for them. I just think that they feel like it's okay to bring their colors off now, and they're showing us.
Mm. Final comment from our listeners. Anthony says school will pull a kid from class to check a locker for Mary Jane, marijuana. They had this kid in the office and didn't go through his backpack.
Yeah. And then if they have, like we talked about earlier, if they had police that was already on the grounds, right? They had already hired police officers because that's part of their security. Why not have them come in and talk to this kid or interrogate him? You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because if you're making these types of threats, um, you got police right there, and those threats are criminal. That's why they call the parents. If I threaten to harm you, that's criminal.
Okay, okay. If you're not in a hurry, Ken, Nate said for me not to be in a hurry, so we'll continue to talk if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I have
Since
a few more minutes. It's 6 o'clock in the morning out here,
I
so
know I forgot, because he's live from Hawaii. What time did you check in with us? Was it 3 o'clock out there?
no, it was. Well, I got up at 4 to check in with you guys.
Okay,
So
yeah. Bless
it's
your heart. Thank you so much. We don't want to put too much pressure on you. We don't want to take up all your time, but we will make
no
a date
worries.
for you to come back and talk about those cases in Hamilton County that you were referring to earlier.
Oh
Janice
yeah,
Robertson says words do matter. Uh, I do agree with that. Let's just wrap up here. Let's talk about appeals. Now, in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, those people, three people that were convicted and will be sentenced, their attorneys are saying they're going to appeal their case. What's the likelihood that there could be an appeal and some changes made in those cases?
so you're talking about the Arbery case
Ahmaud
in
Arbery
Georgia.
case, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and again, from what I saw at the trial, the judge really allowed the defense to do what the defense wanted to do, and so they very like in the case with Kyle Rittenhouse. Remember, the judge was really ruling against the prosecutor the entire time. Well, the prosecutor lost the case. Kyle was found not guilty, right? And so the
Right.
prosecutor can't appeal. So there's nothing that happens. My point is this: when the judge gives you your way, and if you're a defense lawyer and you're objecting and the judge sustains it and makes all the rulings that you like, and then you lose, it's hard to say the judge, because what you have to argue on appeal is the judge did something wrong or the prosecutor did something wrong, and you have to be able to argue that. And so if the judge is giving you everything that you want, you can't argue when you're appealing like, hey, you know what, you should reverse this case, Court of Appeals, because the judge really messed up some stuff down here that I wanted to happen. And the Court of Appeals, no, you got your way. And so I think it's going to be hard for them to get their convictions reversed. And plus the evidence, one other factor that the Court of Appeals looks at is how much evidence was there against you when you got convicted. And
Mm,
if the evidence is overwhelming, it's like, well, whatever little technicality you're saying was unfair, really doesn't count. You would have been convicted anyway.
mm. In your opinion, I mean, here we are 20, 30 years later, the Rodney King case, Rodney's gone on to be with the Lord and all that. But do you think there would have been a different turnout had in the first trial against Rodney King, the police officers and their beating of him?
No, I don't. I don't. I think because remember in that case, they moved it out of L.A. They moved it to
Yes,
Simi Valley, where
yes.
all them police officers lived at. If you look at the Kyle Rittenhouse case, they didn't let any blacks sit on that jury.
No.
Um, they were kicking them all off, and so um, so again, so when your jurors come from the police community, and the police are being tried, and those jurors know I got to go back home to my neighborhood and say hi to my next door neighbor who's married to a police officer, it's going to be hard to convict them. So no, I don't think. Like I said, I'm not convinced with these cases that things have changed. I'm just convinced that the evidence is so overwhelming they had no choice. Um,
Indeed, indeed. Wow. As we wrap up, Jerome says, 513, we love you, Ken. Kathy says, great conversation. Thanks. She says, Ken, Zone 15, proud. Thanks for your early rising, Ken. We really appreciate you. And Crystal says, much appreciation and a great conversation this morning. So, Ken, I will say this as we wrap up this morning. Each of us, we're all responsible for our own selves, right?
yeah,
So we got to make choices and do the right thing and know what we're supposed to be doing. And if you got guns, keep them locked up from your kid.
yeah.
You know something's wrong, see something, say something.
Well, Ed and I enjoy always working with you. I enjoy
Thank
talking to
you.
the audience in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's home. Even though this is my home number two, but Cincinnati always will be home. But I look forward to coming back and talking to you guys about some of that stuff that was going on in our courtrooms that you never knew was going on.
Well, we want to hear that. We will schedule you for that one. Finally, Kevin says you couldn't pay for this commentary. Thank you, Ken.
Well, you
Thank you
could
all.
pay if you want to, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, we'll,
All
we'll
right.
get your hourly rate. See what we can do, huh?
I'm just teasing.
Thanks a lot, Ken
Thanks,
Lawson.
Edna. All
And
right.
thank you all for listening this morning to Straight Talk Live. Knowledge is what's forbidden from us is the knowledge that frees us, and it offers a direct pathway to freedom. Frederick Douglass said that, and we're teaching it right here on Straight Talk Live. I'm Edna Parrish.